One single decision can change everything about a show, and in regular show's case, what if Margaret never came back? What if Rigby never made that rejection letter? What if Mordecai permanently killed Rigby? There are so many small moments throughout the show that could change everything with just one little snap of a finger. Every single thing could change and go a completely different direction, and that's what we're going to be taking a look at today. Regular show's biggest what ifs. And if you like content just like this, please make sure to like and subscribe. At 30k, I'm going to be cosplaying as Muscle Man and doing a hot dog eating contest. And if you want a place where you can talk about your favorite cartoons, movies, shows, games, my Discord will be in the description. Now let's discuss the biggest what ifs in regular show. What if Margaret never came back in season 6? I feel like the show would have been more positive overall. I don't really think they would have another random drama plotline with a random girl where Mordecai is also going to become a cheater. I feel like Margaret was just the main catalyst for Mordecai being really dumb. It was stated in season 5 that he still wasn't over Margaret, he didn't know how to control those feelings, and was it fair for him to actually go out with CJ if he still thought about Margaret sometimes? But if Margaret never comes back, if he never sees Margaret again, then he never has to confront those feelings, and I truly do believe that as the relationship was growing, as the relationship was changing, that he was slowly beginning to forget about Margaret with episodes like Real Date, where they just come together, they become a better bond, going into episodes like Maxin' and Relaxin', where they're able to repair Mordecai and his mom's relationship, and he's able to respect his mother a lot more, not be as embarrassed as much. Daddy issues, where Mordecai helps CJ and her dad to form a bond for basically the first time in their life because they were constantly in a rivalry over mini golf, and her dad just had such high expectations. Their relationship was in a very positive way. It was just going up and up and up. They were helping each other become better people. There was a lot to look forward to. But then we got to Merry Christmas Mordecai, where Mordecai had to confront those feelings and actually see Margaret, and oh my god, my girlfriend's in the bathroom, let me just give a big old smooch to my ex-girlfriend for the 2 minutes that she's gone. Yeah, great, pal. Good job. You just ruined it with a girl who was interested in everything you were interested in, and you had so much fun with all the time for a girl that you literally dated for 5 days. But whatever, that's not the point. He ruined everything in that moment. But what if Margaret never came back? I believe their relationship just would have stayed positive. Mordecai would have never really just decided to do anything that horrendous. And I feel like the show would be received a lot more positively in season 6, because one of the biggest gripes that people have in season 6 is, oh, we're gonna have all of these romance episodes, all of this drama that leads to absolutely nothing, with Mordecai not ending up with either of them, and his lesson is, I should just take it easy on relationships right now. Yeah, no shit, buddy. Wow, what a great moment for you. You really came full circle there, pal. But no, it's just it was just much worse than that. Mordecai just suffered the entire time, dragged CJ's character down with. But if Margaret never decided to come back, then CJ probably could have went all the way into space. She probably could have just been a regular appearing character. Her relationship with Eileen and friendship with Eileen would have gotten better as well. There would have been a lot of good scenes for that, and CJ honestly would have been a terror in space. Can you imagine her cloud powers during just honestly any fight, during the space escape, during the final battle? She could have been a really cool character, and we could have watched her grow alongside Mordecai, and honestly would have made Mordecai's character a lot better as well, but that's just an alternate timeline. I'll say, in my opinion, what if Rigby never had forged the letter? How would the dynamic been if that didn't happen? Well, the thing about Mordecai is that he dreams really big. He has all of these plans. You could see that in the episode Maylard's Package, where he randomly decides that he wants to own an airline, he wants to be an airline pilot, he wants to travel the world and fulfill his dreams. But does he ever do anything like this? No, he doesn't do anything like that pretty much his entire life until he decides to take the jump and actually become an artist. Mordecai has no follow-through. He doesn't complete things. He went to art school and he dropped out. Was that because the world wasn't ready for him being an abstract artist? No, it's because Mordecai is very negative on himself and just can't follow through with things, because he basically doesn't believe in himself or believe that he could even remotely accomplish anything. So even if he did go to college university, I feel like it would have been the same situation. Mordecai would have went there, he would have been really disappointed in his grades or something, and he would have dropped out anyway. And to say if Rigby also got into college university, if they both got in, I still feel like it would be the same. Rigby would not have the work ethic to actually complete college, and Mordecai just would have no follow through, and they would both fail college university and end up at the park anyway. If you're thinking about it in a sense of their actual dynamic, I feel like Mordecai would have no excuses on Rigby holding him back, especially if he did fail college university or if he decided to stay with Rigby. I feel like his superiority complex would be a little bit diminished, because I don't know. There would be really no reason to be mad at Rigby if he was the one who either failed college or chose not to go to college in the first place. I feel like there would be no reason for Mordecai to feel superior other than the diploma, so maybe their relationship would be a little bit better, especially if Rigby didn't do one of the most atrocious things in the series to him. Maybe. What if Skips never lost Mona? That's actually a very interesting one, because this would imply that Skips was able to defeat Clorgbane all on his own without losing Mona. Clorgbane didn't get him pinned, and Mona didn't have to sacrifice herself to save Skips, so probably a very good moment there. But either way, even if he didn't lose Mona, that's not saying that Clorgbane doesn't exist. Skips would probably still be just as happy and be a very happy guy, because now he has his turbo babe baddie who just loves him so much, and they just got to be forever young. I want to be forever young. And they danced and had a great prom night after that. It was lovely. It was fantastic. But still, that doesn't change the fact that in 200 years, Clorgbane is going to return and threaten to kill a lot of people. And that's when we go 25 years into the future, and we have that question. Does Skips want to become immortal to fight Clorgbane once again? Because now he has something so important to him to actually lose if he makes this decision to become immortal. And I feel like even though he has Mona in this storyline and they probably got married, maybe had a couple of... I don't know if he would have kids, because that's the debate, because if he becomes immortal, he's going to outlive every single one of them, so what would he choose to do? I don't know if Mona and Skips were the type to want a family, to desire a family, but if Skips becomes immortal, then he probably shouldn't have that choice, because then it would be all the more sad. But I feel like Mona would still push him to become immortal to fight Clorgbane again, to make sure that this doesn't happen again. I don't know. It's a big debate, but I'm going to go with the timeline where Mona pushes Skips to do this, to protect people, and to make sure that nobody gets hurt ever again. But I'm going to say that Mona and Skips probably don't have a family or anything, because that will be a lot more sad. I'm just going to say that they had a really good, like, 80 to 90 years together. It was fabulous. It was everything Skips could ever hope for, and Skips still becomes immortal, and then Mona does pass away eventually, and he has to deal with that. But at least she didn't die when she was literally 16 years old, so I think that's more beneficial. What if Mordecai and Rigby went to work for East Pines Park instead? I don't think they would have lasted a day. I don't think Gene is as nice of a fella as Benson. Benson, for all of his faults, for all of the yelling, he actually seemed to care about Mordecai and Rigby. If you look at East Pines Park, there are a lot of guys that look the same, they don't do much, and I don't think Gene really cares about any of them as much as Benson cares about his small team at the park. So, if Mordecai and Rigby did something like, you know, steal Gene's food and then sit there and lie about it to his face, they tried to spell Rigby, but they spelt my name wrong, and it just says Gene on the bag, well, I think Gene would fire him really quickly. East Pines clearly makes a lot more money than the actual park. He has a lot more employees, and Mordecai and Rigby are very disposable. I'm sorry to say it, but Mordecai and Rigby are probably some of the worst employees you could ever ask for, so I don't think they would last a minute at East Pines Park. They would have been fired, and then probably desperately just groveled at Benson's feet and been like, "Oh, please hire me, please." What if the park never went into space? This was actually something I was wondering in Season 7, because initially they did escape the dome. They were able to destroy it, and the counter offer when they placed the second dome was that they were able to leave, come and go as they please, but there still is a dome over the park, and nobody seemed to really care about this very much, so they were okay with it. But what if, as it is launching into space, Benson was able to do something crazy again, and they were able to escape, and so they never went into space? Would Mr. Mailer tell them the truth that Anti-Pops is coming, and that they need to prepare? I don't think he would have. I don't know. He always seemed like he had a plot, and he probably would have just tried to send them to space in a different way really fast. But let's say they ran out of time. Let's say Anti-Pops found them and went to Earth before Pops had any of his training, before anybody was really ready to deal with a threat like Anti-Pops. I feel like some people would have died. I feel like it would have been a Dragon Ball Super Saiyan moment where Anti-Pops would have shown up and he would have killed somebody. It could have been somebody not as important, like Thomas or High Five Ghost. Can you imagine Thomas? Because, I mean, he didn't do anything in Season 8 anyway. Anti-Pops shows up, he's wreaking havoc, he's about to, I don't know, erase Pops from existence, and Thomas jumps out of a bush, and he's all like, "Hi-ya!" and tries to kick Anti-Pops in the face, and Thomas just gets erased right there, and that is when we first get get to see Pops with his awakened powers. He just rises up and he's able to thrust Anti-Pops back as Mr. Maylord has a ship or another like backup dome ready, and they all get in there and they all escape and run away from Anti-Pops. Just a theory, a regular show theory, but it could have been something really cool. I would have enjoyed it nonetheless. I mean, it would suck to watch Thomas die, but that would have been a crazy way to kick off everything going into space and make you wonder where this is going to go next and how are they possibly going to defeat Anti-Pops. They could have had Anti-Pops destroy and kill many people. That would have made him seem all the more threatening. It could have been very interesting. I don't know. That's just all at the top of my head, though. Just something that would have been interesting to explore. What if Rigby stayed dead? There are actually multiple instances in the show that we can look at where Rigby dies. I'm going to be focusing on two of them, and the first one is going to be in the episode It's Time, where Mordecai and Rigby are arguing because Mordecai really wants Margaret's ooey gooey bird ass, and Rigby's all like, no, I'm going to take that ooey gooey bird ass because you're jealous of me, so I'm going to go on a date with her and try and bag her and bone her, bro, because you're jealous and you can't admit it. Yeah, such a great, phenomenal episode. But at the end of that episode, Rigby shoves Mordecai on this microwave as they're flying through space and time because Mordecai tried to put clocks in the microwave. He shoves him as hard as he can, and Mordecai, in retaliation, gives him a shove as hard as he can. And because Rigby is not also a 6-foot-tall blue jay, Rigby falls into the abyss and Rigby dies. And imagine if Father Time was able to do nothing to change this and Mordecai was left with the knowledge that he had killed Rigby. It's just a very sad timeline where I'm assuming Mordecai becomes depressed, hates himself, and doesn't ever work again, doesn't do anything again, doesn't care about anything, doesn't even care about Margaret. I just think the show would end there, with Mordecai being alone in his room, just listening to Brain Explosion for the rest of his life or something. It'd be very sad, but a different death in the show for Rigby that would have very major repercussions for the rest of the show is in the episode Over the Top, where Skips kills Rigby. Skips finds out that Rigby is pranking him with Playco Arm Boy, and instead of just, proving to everybody that he is the strongest and just, one-tapping Rigby in arm wrestling, Skips decides to lift this tiny little raccoon up off of the table and slam him through it, and he kills him. He kills Rigby. And in this timeline, if he wasn't able to resurrect Rigby, then Skips also would have died, because Skips tries to get Rigby back by defeating Death in a arm wrestling match. He tries his best, and he's able to do it, but in this alternate timeline, Skips fails, which also means that Skips is dead along with Rigby. And that is tragic. That is very tragic. That's sad. That's so sad. They're both dead. And I feel like this would lead to Mordecai probably becoming a villain. I don't know. I just feel like he would take revenge on everybody who laughed, on everybody who didn't try to stop Skips. I feel like Mordecai would go on his villainous arc, or kind of like how he did with Ross. I feel like Mordecai would want to take revenge on a lot of different people. Maybe Mordecai would become a bounty hunter and go after the babies to try to go to the Guardians youth, go after Gary, go after all of them to try to resurrect Skips so that he could get revenge on Skips. I feel like Mordecai's that kind of crazy guy. When he loses the people in his life, he's willing to sacrifice everything, and I feel like he would turn pretty crazy. So it'd be a pretty interesting plotline if Skips actually went through it. And imagine if Skips didn't also die, and we had Skips versus Mordecai in the show, where it was just them battling, just using everything they could possibly do to try to kill each other. Very interesting. What if Mordecai met CJ in season 1 before Margaret? Okay, I'm gonna tweak this a little bit. I'm gonna imply that Mordecai had never met Margaret before. He wasn't constantly going to the coffee shop, because it's determined in season 1 that he has gone there and he has been interested in Margaret for a very long time. But let's say he met CJ first. I would hope to dear Lord that a character that has a lot of interests just like you, that you could go out and play video games with, that you could eat food with, that you could go roller skating with, that you could go go-karting with, that you laugh more than I've ever seen you laugh with, would entrance you more than a red bird who doesn't have any qualities about herself. I feel like, Mordecai would maybe become obsessed with CJ, and then they would both like each other, and then it would be normalized or something. I don't know. I've always wondered if CJ was the romantic interest instead of Margaret from the beginning, if people would be a lot more interested in the overall romantic plotline, because CJ was an actual character, had her own interest, had her own faults, had her own problems, compared to Margaret not really having any problems, just kind of being there. I feel like it would have been a lot more interesting, and I would have actually enjoyed Mordecai pursuing CJ a lot more than Margaret. What if regular show was on Adult Swim? I think there's a very simple answer to that. It'd be situations kind of like this. You know who else wants to have sex with my mom? That's not how you say that, Muscle Man. What? Of course it is. Yeah, it'd be situations like that where Muscle Man's either being freaky or Benson is just yelling horrible obscenities to Mordecai and Rigby, but it'd still be really funny. I'd enjoy it. Maybe Mordecai and Rigby would be stoners. That's kind of very obvious, but still be pretty interesting to see. I'd be all for it. I mean, we're gonna get to see it with the Lost Tapes. I don't know what extent they'll go with it because I know it's on Adult Swim, but I don't know if that means they're fully going adult with it, but we'll see. What if Rigby's dad never got retconned? That's actually a very interesting plotline because I feel like if Rigby's dad wasn't the way he was, then Rigby would have turned out way different. Because in case you didn't know, in Thanksgiving special, when you see Rigby's father for the first time, he's like the most welcoming man ever. He's like, "Hey, Rigby. Oh, I missed you, son. Come sit down and have some turkey. Oh, yeah, I love you." And then when we see Rigby's father again, we see Sherm in his full finest. He is a man that likes to walk around in his underwear and go, "Rigby, I love my car more than you." And he is the main reason that Rigby is the way that he is, because he always loved Dawn more than Rigby. He never expected anything of Rigby, and he always expected Rigby to be a failure. But if Rigby had a supporting father who loved Rigby throughout all of his faults, I feel like Rigby would be more sure of himself. He wouldn't be the problem causer that he is in seasons 1 through 4. He would have been able to solve situations. He would have wanted to help people a lot more. He probably would have been way more interested in dating Eileen initially. He just had a lot of problems caused from his father, never really trusting him, never believing in him, and I feel like that was very detrimental to who Rigby was as a person. So, if he was never retconned, I just think Rigby would be a lot better, but also a lot less funny. What if Thomas stayed around for the rest of the show? That's actually something that I played around with in my head a lot because I think it'd be a really cool concept. If Thomas never fully left the show, he's still running away from like the FBI and the Russian government at the same time. But just imagine like random scenes where Mordecai and Rigby are just struggling like, what should we do today, Rigbone? What should we do? Should we go give Dawn some sugar? And then Thomas is just in the background fighting a CIA agent randomly, and then he just chimes in with like giving them advice or something, or just randomly he punches a monster in the face and then disappears into a bush. I still feel like they could have kept him in a show in an interesting way that played off the fact that he was now on the run constantly, to where he was randomly in a bush, randomly just, you know, at a shop wearing a disguise. I know they do that a few times in the series where he appears again wearing a disguise, but I feel like they could have leaned into it because it would have been anything but regular. It would have fit how the show would work, and it wouldn't be that much of an ask, especially because Roger Craig Smith, the guy who voices Thomas, is literally in almost every single regular show episode all the way through season 8. So he could have been there. He could have went to space. It could have been cool. I would have been all for it, but unfortunately, Thomas did not stay around very long. What if Mordecai and Rigby did their jobs? Well, there is one episode that could clearly answer that question, and it's in the episode Peeps. Benson is one of the best bosses you could ever want. When he was watching Mordecai and Rigby on the cameras because he wants to make sure that they're working, they had been washing dishes for a few hours, and he is so proud of them that he literally goes into his file cabinet and grabs this piece of paper, and it's like 1 free pizza for Luigi's. How excited would Mordecai and Rigby, those broke-ass dumbasses, be if they got a free coupon for a large pie? My God. They would lose their minds. They would go, "Benson, whoa, we love you, Benson." But no, they were actually just tricking him the entire time. But it's very clearly obvious, if you do your job at the park, Benson will reward you, he will like you, and he will care about you. But, yeah, so if they did their jobs, they'd probably have a much better time working at the park, a much better friendship with Benson, and would ultimately be rewarded with food. It could have been so much better for them.